Oh, hey, didn't see you there. So, guys, it's been a while. Might be wondering, why is this the first video you're uploading in about a year? Are you trying to do your best Corey Kenshin impersonation? No. I would say I just forgot to press the record button on a lot of videos. Would say that I had a lot of videos filled up. I did. I would say even to the extent that it's just been, well, I've been really busy with work, and hey, I don't got time to watch games like I used to. It's a mixture of all of those things, but what it is most assuredly and certainly is a good reason to come back. What's the word, everybody? It's Basketball Soup. I'm not gonna tell you my real name. If you know it, you do, and if you don't, you probably couldn't pronounce it anyway. So, today, as you can see, we're gonna be talking about something like this. Some basketball, some hoops. Who puts the ball in the net the best? It's not a top 10 list though, unfortunately. We're gonna be talking about contenders. Contenders are teams that I think could actually hoist the Larry O'Brien, the trophy that you win for winning the finals if you're a casual, at the end of the season. Which team has the best chance of winning a championship in the 2024 to 2025 season? I know you're saying, well, the season hasn't even started. Haven't even got preseason games. Well, it's good to have these out declared and on the internet. So in around 8 or so months, I can say, I told you, I was so right. Yeah, yes, I did it. I did it. I'm so smart. Look at my brain expanding. But besides, for I told you so points, we're going to talk about the 8 teams, 4 in each conference, which I really think realistically could actually hoist that trophy at the end of the season. And I will list the people that I think need to be the best player on their team, obviously, for them to win a championship. First, we should probably talk about the Boston Celtics, the elephant in the room. They hoisted that trophy last year, and Tatum did not hoist the Finals MVP last year. As you all know, and if you've been keeping up with track with Olympic basketball, it looks like Tatum just lost his jump shot in some like really ironic, like Markelle Fultz level of what happened to your jumper buddy. He looks great around the rim, and he's still really putting pressure in around the rim. He's really good. Still a great defender. Still all these other things. But, like, if there's ever been, like, jokes about an NBA player that where you're like, oh, dude, he wouldn't survive in the 90s. Tatum looks like what people think a modern NBA player would look like in the 90s. He'd be great on defense, but, like, his offensive game has just been disappeared. I'm not here to make fun of Jason Tatum, though. Tatum is a great player. I was going to say I moved Tatum up in my rankings, but he's been around the same, but for completely different reasons. Anyway, they have the best chance to repeat. They retooled the roster. Everyone's signed for good deals. If Porzingis can stay healthy, that is a big if. And by the way, in this video, we will be talking about why I think they couldn't win a championship, as opposed to why I think they can win a championship, because I feel it's pretty obvious why these teams can win a championship. Most of these teams have been in the conference finals or have just been, recently, or have lived on the upturn recently. That's for one team that I'll mention at the very end of this video. Yeah, these teams have a good shot to win a championship, and I'm not going to deny that, but I'm going to explain why I think they could miss out on that title opportunity. And for the teams I don't mention, they ain't got a chance in hell. If they win a championship, I will genuinely be surprised. And considering how low my views are in this video, I'll give everybody $50 who, for a team that doesn't win the championship, that are just like, what do you want me to tell you, bro? I didn't see the Hornets becoming like, the 72 and 10 bowls or whatever. I didn't see that happening. That just didn't seem like a realistic possibility. So, whatever. We're going to talk about only winning teams that matter. So, as far as the Celtics go, I think they could repeat pretty easily. The East is not as strong as the West, and it never really, frankly, it probably won't be in the next 5 or so years. I think with the recent rule additions to the NBA's too, it's going to be really hard to trade for a star player. Not only does trading for a star player also mean you have to build some really good continuity around the trade deadline pretty fast, and they have to fit into almost seamlessly into your roster, which means they likely weren't going to be available in the first place. So the Celtics don't really have that much opposition, especially out East. I do think the East being injured was strange, and I will mention briefly a dark horse in the East really quickly. But as far as the Celtics go, I think they have the best chance to repeat in general versus, let alone getting out of the conference. My number two for who I think would make it out is the Knicks. And I know the Knicks did not make the Eastern Conference Finals last year. I know they didn't even make it past the Pacers. But the reason I think the Knicks can do it is because the addition they made this offseason, Mikal Bridges, fits almost seamlessly into their roster schematically, and not losing out on OG Anunoby and retaining him was pretty impressive to me. They've got a lot of good guys on pretty good deals. Dr. DiVincenzo is still here, and the Villanova Knicks are certainly they're different. Like, I think this is probably one of the best ways you could build a team in the modern era. New York really deserves this. They've been suffering year after year after year with mediocrity, or even worse than mediocrity in the case of the last tenure of Carmelo Anthony and stuff. But regardless, that team actually has a chance to win the championship for the first time in so long, and it's a good shout. I think they have a really good team. Their roster is well built. Jalen Brunson is a star. I have him in my top 10. I have him pretty high in my top 10, to be honest, in comparison to what most people think. And I think, realistically speaking, there's a chance at the end of the season, he's the best point guard in the NBA. You know, if you don't really consider Luka a point guard or Braun a point guard, but I would still say it's got a pretty good argument. And I know you're saying Shea and Steph. I said could. I didn't say would. I'm very careful with my wording, and I try to be at least. As far as the Knicks go, they have a real shot. We're going to talk about the Sixers, and the reason I don't think the Sixers could do it versus why they can do it off rip, I'm just going to be honest with you. Joel Embiid's health is always going to be a concern for me, and the recent addition of Paul George is also very concerning. Paul George is not known to be one of the healthiest players of all time. So, yeah, if his knee just decides to, it's going to be hard for them to win a championship. And if Joel Embiid, my shoulder, they're not going to win a championship. I don't really know what to tell you as far as that. I mean, you could also talk about they have a better chance than ever with the fact that they got rid of that terrorist Tobias Harris off the roster. That's really important for them. I know Sixers fans are very gracious to have gotten rid of him, and the fact that he's going to suffer in the Detroit Pistons system is something that should be celebrated realistically if you're a 76ers or just a Philadelphia resident. But I don't believe in them to win the championship unless Joel Embiid is going to be playing fully healthy. And that has never happened except one time in 2019 where he was fully healthy. And if we look at 2019, not only is it just an outlier season in general, Mickey, but if you just look over and you look how terrible Joel Embiid played in that series, I'm not exaggerating. I'm not going to pull up the numbers. You're not getting any of those with me. But if you just want to look at something truly disgusting, look up Joel Embiid 2019 versus Raptors. And if you just look at his numbers, but regardless, Joel Embiid has made massive strides since the last time I've made a YouTube video on who he is as a basketball player. But his injuries have also made massive strides in making sure that he is not touching the court. The 65 MVP, I feel like the 65 MVP rule was specifically to make sure that he never wins one again. But hey, the next team I'm going to talk about is not going to be the Milwaukee Bucks. I know you thought they were going to be here, but no, we're not talking about them. I'm just messing with you. That's the team we're talking about. Giannis Antetokounmpo is debatably the best player in the world. He just came off a season averaging 30 on 60% shooting. For my non-basketball nerds, that's really good. Imagine, if you will, I don't know if you guys are old enough for this, but hey, there's this player called Shaquille O'Neal. I don't really know about him, but
Big Diesel put the ball in the basket pretty good. And Giannis does about the same thing, but this time, instead of doing that, he might hit you with a
Giannis has made great strides as a defender and a player in general since the last time I've made a video. I still think of him relatively the same way I did, though. He's a more potent offensive player, and it's not for any other reasons that you would have thought in the other years, like, oh, he developed a mid-range game, or oh, he's a three-point shooter now. No. He's like Shaq in the modern era. If you think Shaq, like if Orlando Magic Shaq was transported into today's era, he would probably look like Giannis Antetokounmpo. But the reasons I don't think they could win a championship is because Damian Lillard played like garbage last season, and if you want them to win a championship, Damian Lillard cannot do that. And Chris Middleton it's in the name, he was thoroughly mid throughout the regular season. In the playoffs, he stepped it up, but I don't know how many more playoff heroics you're going to get from him, especially because he's also seeming to be injury prone as of late. Giannis also was injured last year. So, yeah, I don't know what you want me to say. Brook Lopez is eventually going to decline. A lot of players on the roster are going to decline, and they don't have a lot of young talent. This could put them in a very awkward situation in the future, just looking at this team in general. And now I'm going to talk about the Pacers, which I said I wouldn't talk about, and maybe they deserve their own video. But considering I haven't filmed anything in like a year plus, they're not getting their video yet. All right, guys. So, Pacers. Why do I think the Pacers could win a championship? Number one, they were in the Eastern Conference last year. Number two, they played the eventual champions very well in that sweep. Yes, I know they got swept by the eventual champions. I still think they really have a good chance. This is a game of matchups, and the Celtics could go home for a myriad of reasons that just are unforeseen. And there just seems to be like a championship curse as of late, where any team that's won it since the I don't know if I can say this on YouTube, so the bubble year, right? The Mickey Mouse Clubhouse year. MIKAEYMOUSE. Ever since someone's won that championship, they've been going home in the second round ever since then. And I know you're going to say, what about the Lakers? They went home in the first round. Shut up, you nunts. The Pacers have a good chance. Tyler Halliburton was injured last year, and I know I've been saying throughout this entire video, oh, this player's injury prone and why they couldn't win. I don't feel like that for Tyrese Halliburton. He had been playing through an injury like the entire season, basically. And also, like, in very limited moments that we saw him in Olympic basketball, it looks like he hasn't forgotten how to shoot, unlike Tatum. I do believe Neymar is one of their players. I think he could have a better season than last year. He's going to improve. Obi Toppin is. I just really like how this core is put together. And Rick Carlisle as a coach is always going to have a very good offensive engine. Just like that's. I don't know what to tell you. They're always going to be a great offensive team. Defensively, they also stepped up and improved in the playoffs. If you would look at that, they did. I see Halliburton improving. I see Siakam staying about the same. And that man couldn't miss like a mid-range shot in the playoffs. He looked lethal. Spicy P finally earning that nickname. Looked great. Miles Turner is still on the roster. He's still a great 3-and-D center. I think he averages I think it's like 50% from three with like very limited volume, but still that's. I don't want my 7-footer. Fun fact: taking 7 threes a game. I don't want that. Like, the only person that in the NBA that can get away with that is Karl-Anthony Towns. And Karl-Anthony Towns is only getting away with that because they have Rudy Gobert on the roster now. And he's a great defensive player. And with that being said, we're going to transition into the Timberwolves. The Timberwolves have Anthony Edwards. Anthony Edwards could make a case for being top 10 this year. I think he could be in the top 5 conversation when it's all said and done this season. If he and this roster goes as far as he's willing to take them, and how far they're willing to be carried by him, because they have to, on the offensive end, figure something out. Conley is getting older, so I think that could be a reason why you would be worried about this team. Like, if you were a fan of said team, if you're looking at this team, you're like, what are they gonna do? Score buckets? Yeah, but you're not scoring on them. They have you clamped, locked up, absolutely gassed. I think the real reason they didn't even win and make it out of the Western Conference Finals last year is because they were just gassed. Like, they just played a grueling 7-game series against the Nuggets, who were the champions of the year prior, and no one even thought the Nuggets were going to lose. Everyone really thought the Nuggets were going to win the championship. I thought the Nuggets were going to win the championship. I guess I should have just accounted for the curse and that Jamal Murray would have been injured. But hey, and that KCP just walked this offseason. I will transition to that team later, but let's still talk about the Timberwolves. The problem with the Timberwolves is offensively, they are inept. They are not good at putting the ball in the hoop. They're great at stopping the other team from putting the ball in the hoop, but this game is about buckets. Now, this team also, I would like to point out, showed some grit, some toughness in that Game 7 against the defending champions in Denver on the road, down 20. They made that comeback. But again, if we look at these teams that make deep postseason runs, they look gassed. And I don't think Anthony Edwards himself looked gassed, but the team just looked like they ran out of fuel. I think Ant just doesn't seem like a player that has that type of motor problems at this point in his career. But the team itself just looked exhausted fighting that team. And that's probably why the Mavs even eventually made it to the finals in hindsight. I know it is kind of icky to think about things in hindsight, but yeah, that's a thing. We're going to talk about the Nuggets now. The Nuggets were everyone's favorite going into the season last year. We didn't believe in the Celtics. I didn't believe into the Celtics until they actually hoisted the trophy, to be honest. Rather, when they went up 3-0 against the Mavs, unless I'm mistaken, and they went up 3-1, but I'm pretty sure they went up 3-0. I'm pretty sure Game 4 was the game where Kyrie turned it on and was like, oh yeah, come back from 3-0. Of course not, but anyway, the Nuggets. So they lost KCP this offseason. He's a valuable 3-and-D player. So realistically, I looked at a lot of other teams and I was talking about how the bench players would have to step up. That's exactly what the Nuggets would have to do to essentially win. I didn't talk about the Sixers' lack of depth too, but they had some additions. We'll talk about a team that does have so much depth. They're going to be a problem just because of that alone, especially in today's modern NBA with a lot of young players on their team with under contracts that are very cheap, and the fact that they could afford to pay a guy and maybe get a superstar in a trade, which I don't think they need to do, but we're going to get to that team later. The Nuggets, as far as this jumbled up video goes, are very dangerous. Jamal Murray, if healthy, is very dangerous. I don't see him being much better than he was in the 2023 run. And I do have to probably start to acknowledge that he is maybe injury prone, but it feels like a lot of guys have been getting injured. A lot of guys get injured every year in the playoffs, though, so I probably shouldn't hold that against these teams, these guys, but I do have to make a note of it in case it does become an issue and they start to look more like Derrick Rose, where paper skin, glass bones, and not enough oomph and toughness to make them last through the playoffs. But hey, what do I know? I am a soy boy electrician who works and does nothing but hang lights all day. So what do I know about anything about being a professional athlete? I'm not even a professional electrician. But hey, but no, the Nuggets are still dangerous. Aaron Gordon did get kind of exposed, but I feel like that team was perfectly built to defeat the Nuggets last year, and it took them 7 games to do it too. So we do have to account for that. There are no other contenders out west besides the final team that I'm going to mention, and I think I did mention the Mavericks. Yeah, I didn't mention the Mavericks. I haven't covered them yet. There are no other teams out there west that can actually contend. If you think so, I don't know, bro. Maybe Zion will be healthy this year, and miracles happen. You know, every year there's that one team that no one saw, and if I had a dark horse, it would be the Pelicans. I'm not going to talk about them because I feel like the Pacers and the Pelicans could actually earn their own video separately from this one as like a sequel series to this video. But hey, we'll communicate about that one later. What is the issue with the Mavericks? They did lose out on a little bit of depth this offseason, but I don't think that'll be the end of them. They also gained on Klay Thompson, who, again, I'm looking at this team like you're probably going to have to just max out your offense, and your defense did suffer from what you did last year, but I think they're going to have to max their offense. A problem with maxing out your offense out west is when you match up against certain teams, it's going to be tough. Luka did dominate the Defensive Player of the Year last year. Again, though, I would like to point out Rudy Gobert is not supposed to be on the perimeter. If Rudy Gobert finds himself out on the perimeter, you have done something crucially wrong. If Rudy Gobert finds himself out of this arc and then there's another box in between it, I don't know if you've ever seen a basketball court. Rudy Gobert is supposed to be hovering around this box. If Rudy Gobert is outside of this box, he should be playing the help defender role. And if Rudy Gobert is outside of this box up here on this arc, you've done something critically wrong, and he is about to get exposed for the weaknesses that every great big man has had. And the reason you didn't see it as much is because the pick and roll wasn't as effective, because you could actually fight over screens back in the day. I know old hit talk from a guy who's like 21. I said 21. I just turned 21 last Sunday. Depends on when this video comes out, but I'm hoping it comes out literally today. and I can find a ability to make a thumbnail today. But hey, the reason I think the Mavericks could lose out on being contenders this year is because, truthfully, Luka's gonna have to step on the defensive end, and I don't really know how much you can expect from him. He is pretty slow-footed, and his methodical pace really only works on the offensive end because it's hard to guard a player like that. He's big, he's strong, and he can pass. So if Luka comes into the season in shape for once, I know, big axe to axe him. He's actually very similar to James Harden, and I might do a case study in comparison about their careers so far, like how they line up to each other, and just like go year by year and be like, oh, this is what Harden was doing in this year, and this was Harden was doing this year. I haven't had really good NBA video ideas in a while either, so if you're interested in any of the video ideas that I just prompted, leave a like, subscribe, and I'll see you in the next one, because this video is already dragging out past the 20-minute mark, and I didn't think I could talk this long.